In the complex tapestry of global energy and geopolitics, a critical juncture approaches. We are observing the precipice of an European energy crisis, a scenario whose implications resonate far beyond mere gas prices. This analysis delves into the intricate web of supply, demand, and strategic maneuvers, revealing a landscape where Europe's energy future hangs precariously. On March 9th, a televised address by President Putin offered a stark message, not just to Russia's energy executives, but directly to Europe. His words, emphasizing sustainability and stability, were more than diplomatic pleasantries. They were contractual terms. This statement presented Europe with a clear choice: dismantle existing sanctions, and Russia would ensure continued gas flows. Maintain sanctions, and remaining Russian LNG would be redirected, intensifying competition in Asian markets. This was a strategic offer designed to expose Europe's vulnerabilities. Europe's current energy challenge is not primarily oil, which it can manage at higher costs. The real crisis lies in gas supply, and the numbers paint a concerning picture. Data from Bruegel highlights the diminishing strategic reserves across the continent. By late February 2026, EU gas storage stood at a mere 30% of capacity, totaling 46 billion cubic meters. This is a sharp decline from 60 BCM a year prior and 77 BCM 2 years earlier. The buffer that once offered security is rapidly vanishing. For context, the EU's gas storage regulation mandates reaching 90% capacity by winter, approximately 95 BCM. This leaves a daunting injection gap of 49 BCM that must be filled within 8 months. This calculation does not even account for continuous daily consumption throughout spring and summer. Depletion was exacerbated by an unusually cold winter, pushing gas demand up 7% year on year. Furthermore, increased piped gas exports to Ukraine, rising tenfold since early 2026, drained nearly 0.9 billion cubic meters to support their grid post-Russian transgression. Then, on February 28th, the Strait of Hormuz closed, fundamentally altering Europe's energy equation. This single event removed Europe's second-largest alternative to Russian gas, effectively overnight. The geopolitical implications are profound, extending to every energy-dependent nation. This closure magnified Europe's supply hole. KP-Lair's analysis confirmed that Qatar Energy's force majeure on Ras Laffan alone removed 5.8 million tons of LNG from global supply in March. This represents roughly 14% of the entire month's expected global output, with Qatar typically supplying 12 to 14% of Europe's LNG imports. The critical question now is, where will Europe find replacement gas? Major traditional suppliers are already operating at peak capacity, leaving little room for increased output. This supply vacuum creates intense pressure on global markets. Norway, a significant pipeline supplier, declared it is producing at full capacity. Its energy minister, Terje Aasland, acknowledged this crisis would inevitably reopen the sensitive debate surrounding Russian gas. This highlights the inherent limitations of current infrastructure. The United States currently supplies 60% of Europe's LNG, but American export terminals are already near their operational limits. KP-Lair's analysis is stark. Realistic supplementary LNG supply from all other global sources amounts to less than 2 million tons. This is insufficient to cover the 5.8 million ton monthly shortfall. Algeria and other smaller suppliers cannot bridge this substantial gap. The mathematical reality indicates an unclosed supply deficit, forcing difficult decisions regarding energy procurement. This directly impacts economic stability and industrial output. The gas market reacted swiftly, signaling distress long before political recognition. The Dutch TTF benchmark, which dictates European gas prices, experienced unprecedented volatility. This immediately translated into higher costs for industry and households. Before the Hormuz closure, TTF traded at approximately $32 per megawatt hour. Following the Strait's closure and Qatar's halt, it surged 45% to around $46 by March 2nd. Just a week later, it jumped another 30%, briefly touching $69.50 intraday. This escalating price environment is not sustainable for many European industries. ICIS modeled a 90-day Hormuz closure, projecting TTF to immediately hit $92, averaging $86 during the blockade. This is nearly triple the pre-crisis level, a tipping point for many sectors. At such prices, heavy industry, chemical manufacturing, and fertilizer production become economically unviable. Germany, Europe's industrial powerhouse, would face mandatory gas curtailments. Goldman Sachs echoed this, warning that even a month-long halt would push TTF to $74, the exact level that triggered widespread industrial demand destruction in 2022. Western governments confront an impossible triangle, a structural problem with no easy solution. They are simultaneously attempting to enforce sanctions on Russia, accept the consequences of the Hormuz closure, and keep their economies running. These objectives are fundamentally in conflict. As the analysis reveals, one can only achieve two of these three objectives. The pursuit of all three simultaneously leads to inevitable failure. This forces a reevaluation of national and bloc-wide priorities with significant geopolitical repercussions. India provided an early blueprint for navigating this triangle. When the strait closed, India chose economic survival over strict sanctions compliance. It secured 20 million barrels of Russian crude through an OFAC waiver. This came at a premium of $4 to $5 over Brent. Despite previous discounts, Washington tacitly approved, recognizing that the alternative was oil prices soaring to $150 per barrel. India's swift, decisive action prioritized its economic stability. Europe now faces the same impossible triangle, and cracks in its unified front are already apparent. Member states with high energy dependence are vocalizing their concerns, challenging the existing consensus on sanctions. This internal pressure could force significant policy shifts. Hungary, for instance, immediately demanded the EU lift its ban on Russian oil and gas, citing serious harm to European people. Prime Minister Orban directly appealed to the European Commission, highlighting the growing divergence in national interests versus collective policy. Slovakia escalated its opposition further, with Prime Minister Fico filing a formal legal complaint against the EU's phase-out of Russian gas. He called it ideology and hatred towards Russia that was destroying his economy. Fico even threatened to veto a $90 billion EU loan package for Ukraine unless Russian energy flows were restored. In response, the European Commissioner Dombrovskis emphasized the need to keep the pressure on Russia. He explicitly warned against panic-driven sanctions relief, underscoring the delicate balance between economic reality and geopolitical objectives. The calendar itself has become a weapon in this energy standoff. April 25, 2026 marks a critical deadline when EU Regulation 2026-261 bans all Russian LNG imported under short-term contracts. This creates an immediate and unavoidable supply challenge. Russia currently stands as Europe's second-largest LNG supplier, providing 16% of total imports as of February. The EU is poised to legally prohibit purchases from a crucial supplier precisely when global LNG markets face a severe monthly deficit of 5.8 million tons. Consider the combined impact. Qatar, supplying 12 and 14% of Europe's LNG, is offline. Russia, providing 16%, is about to be banned. This means 28–30% of Europe's LNG imports are either physically unavailable or legally prohibited simultaneously. With storage at a mere 30% capacity and winter just 8 months away, the implications are dire. The Atlantic Council argues for sustained sanctions, warning against restoring Russia's leverage. However, sanctions do not produce energy molecules, which Europe desperately needs to inject underground. Some look to alternative oil transit routes as a solution, but this offers a false sense of security. Saudi Arabia's East-West Pipeline and the UAE's Abu Dhabi Crude Oil Pipeline, ADCOP, can bypass Hormuz, yet their capacity is severely limited. Combined, these pipelines offer spare capacity of roughly 3.5 to 5.7 million barrels per day, BPD. This is a fraction of the 20 million BPD that normally transits the strait, leaving 14 to 16.5 million BPD physically trapped. The bottleneck is not just the pipelines, but also the inadequate port infrastructure for loading. Yanbu's loading terminals, for example, can sustain 4 million BPD, but attempting to push 7 million BPD through them creates massive offshore queues. Nations like Pakistan have already sent emergency requests to Saudi Arabia, seeking priority for their oil shipments. Saudi Arabia faces the difficult task of rationing limited loading slots among allied nations. Crucially, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar possess no bypass pipelines at all. These producers are consequently forced to shut in production as their storage tanks overflow, with no viable export routes for their oil. This further tightens global supply. The unfolding European energy crisis has direct consequences for India, a significant global energy consumer. In a previous analysis, India secured 20 million barrels of Russian crude, paying a premium to keep its refineries running. If Europe enters the same market to replace its lost supply, competition will intensify dramatically. Every barrel India secures means one less for Europe, and vice versa. This bidding war will inevitably drive delivered prices higher for all buyers. Russia holds a strong strategic hand. It does not need to favor a particular buyer. By simply allowing India and Europe to compete for available cargoes, the premium escalates organically. This situation maximizes Russia's revenue and influence. Andrei Kovatariu of the Energy Center for Central Europe suggests Russia might deliberately maintain crude discounts to deepen its leverage over Beijing, while India and Europe bid fiercely for floating cargoes. This turns a crisis Russia did not initiate into a potent strategic asset. Putin's March 9th address explicitly hinted at cutting off remaining European LNG deliveries entirely and redirecting them to Asia. This move would preempt the EU's own April 25th ban, turning the tables on Europe's policy. Should this occur, Europe would lose its Russian supply before it could secure replacements. Every LNG cargo in the Atlantic would become the subject of an intense bidding war between desperate European utilities and equally demand-driven Asian refiners. For 10 days, the impossible triangle has been analyzed from various angles. India's version found a swift, if costly, resolution by prioritizing economic survival. Europe, however, faces a far more complex dilemma with no clean resolution in sight. Breaking the sanctions corner would grant Putin a significant diplomatic victory and fund the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Maintaining sanctions through April 25th risks Europe entering summer with a substantial portion of its LNG supply either prohibited or physically unavailable. Relying on bypass infrastructure is mathematically unsound. 5 million BPD cannot replace 20 million. German Chancellor Merz's candid remark at the White House, acknowledging the economic damage, echoes the unspoken concerns across Europe. Since then, oil prices have surged, TTF gas benchmarks have skyrocketed, Qatar's LNG is offline, and Russia has offered an alternative. Hungary and Slovakia threaten to break EU consensus, while the April 25th ban rapidly approaches. Europe's decision or lack thereof will not change the fundamental arithmetic. The impossible triangle will resolve itself, with profound consequences for the continent's energy security and economic stability. The unfolding energy crisis demands urgent and coordinated strategic planning. Policymakers must reevaluate the impossible triangle, prioritizing national and regional energy security with pragmatic solutions. Investors should scrutinize energy portfolios, assessing risks and opportunities in this volatile landscape. Energy companies must accelerate diversification efforts and secure long-term supply agreements. Economists and geopolitical analysts have a crucial role in providing accurate forecasts and independent analysis to guide decision-making. We urge all stakeholders to engage in robust dialogues, explore innovative energy solutions, and prepare for a future defined by increased energy competition and geopolitical shifts. Your proactive engagement now is critical to mitigating the impending challenges and shaping a resilient energy future.